there are two things that happen on this channel: Lionel trains and the organ. How those two go together is beyond me, but this is going to be my attempt at trying to bring them together in some way. So starting with the layout, I have been in dire need of light. I need lights on the layout, like yard lights, street lights, lights. It's very dark right now. But I just cannot bring myself to spend, I don't know how much, too much, on little, like a set of 3 lights on eBay with the taxes and the shipping that go with it. It's just like, I just need a light. That's where the layout is, okay? That's how it fits into this. It'll make sense in a minute. Okay, now to the organ side of things. Hey, behind me, what you see right here, this is from an old organ that I helped remove when I was in high school. And in my naive optimism at the time, I thought that I would rebuild it perfectly for my home parish. That never happened, obviously, because I have a chunk of it right here. And after years of having the pipes in storage and other parts of the instrument just lying around, I was able to get them to a friend of mine who has his own small organ firm. And so he's going to use the parts for some future projects. But that didn't mean that I just left everything behind. I took some cool things like this. It's the stop rail, but like he's not going to use that in a project. And I thought, well, make a pretty cool decoration. Well, one step further. Okay, these little jewels right here, I don't know if you can see them. These little jewels right here, there are lights that go behind them. In fact, here they are. There are lights that go behind those jewels. And I always had these lying around, and then it occurred to me, I thought, well, there's no reason that I couldn't use these on the layout. I mean, it's kind of a, it's a vintage style layout. This is a vintage organ, it's from the 50s. And even these bulbs just look very, I don't know, old. They're cool. Anyways, these bulbs, they sat right behind, right behind these lenses. And basically what they would do is tell the organist how much they had activated the crescendo. And what's the crescendo? On modern organs, or organs with electric assistance, there would be a pedal that you could control with your feet, kind of like a gas pedal. And the more that you pushed it in, the more stops it engaged. But these stops don't have mechanical linkage to them, so they're activated by hand. So there's no electronics activating them for you to see how many stops have been added. The pedal just activates them within the organ. So in order to see how many stops you've added, since it's not actually tilting the stop tabs, in order to see how many stops you had activated in the crescendo, these lights would illuminate one by one by one by one until, when they were all lit up, that would indicate that you had activated all of the crescendo that was available, that was programmed into the organ. So that's what the bulbs were used for. And what we're going to do is take these bulbs and repurpose them, because they still work. I've checked, and I'll show you again in a second. We're going to repurpose these bulbs for the layout and make some yard lights, or just various industrial work lights out of them to place around the table. Okay, so the way that these bulbs basically worked is, of course, this is kind of like the hot wire, and this big brass plate that they clip onto serves as the ground. So we can check to see if this actually works by taking a piece of wire and touch it to the hot wire portion, touch that to the center rail of the track, and then touch this big brass plate to the ground, and voila, the lights still work. So why don't we go ahead and just check, make sure that all the lights still work. That one works. Let's see about this one. That one works. And oopsies. Oh gosh. Oh my goodness. This is hilarious. I shorted out my wire. it works. So, let's get started. So the beautiful thing about this brass plate, kind of the way of grounding these bulbs, is that they just clip on, like so. And so for our purposes, we can just take it off, and voila. Now we have an old style light post. So we'll just go through and snip this. There's our bulb. And there we have it. We have 4 functioning bulbs to turn into light posts. Oh goodness, don't drop them like I did. Ah. That's why we use a soft surface. So I have some of these wood strips from Hobby Lobby, and I think we'll use this as, they're square, so I know it's how many square light posts do you see in real life, but I mean, you cannot really demand realism in this kind of hobby. I think we'll cut them down to about this length, and the beauty of these being clip-on is that we can basically just, you know, wedge it onto the top of this post. Maybe carve the top just a little bit so it wedges in there. Yeah, that's better. And then voila, we have a lamp post. Maybe move this wire. I don't know if I can really spin this. Ah, perfect. And then we'll just run our wire down the side here. I don't really know how I'm gonna fasten that in place. The point is, what we'll do is we'll take our hot wire, run it down, and then, you know, maybe just solder on just a ground onto this, the metal clip, just like that metal clip was attached to the brass plate. So the little clip itself will be our ground. So ground, hot, and then just run this down the post into the table. I don't know. I think it makes sense to stain the wood, you know, so it fits in a little better. I just think the white, that bright, unstained color is a little too vibrant for us. But let's see and make sure that this is actually a good height for the layout first. So the lumberyard is a bit of a mess right now, but you know, one spot that I'm thinking of is even just right here to help bring some more light to the sawmill and to the coaling station. And I mean, I think that's a decent height. I have no idea which direction I'll face it, but I think that'll work. Oh yes, back here by the water tower is another one that I've thought of, or even just at the switch by the road. I don't know. I think we have, what, there's 4 bulbs to use. Really, the biggest thing is just to make sure that it's not awkwardly tall or anything, or too stubby and short. But like, yeah, I think that would look nice there. Bring some more light to the milk platform and the barrel loader. All right, now that I've got a few more strips here cut, going to put some stain on it. Like any good shop, you just find what you have on the shelf, and we're gonna roll with it. So this is a dark walnut stain. So it won't be super dark. Well, I don't think, at least. It says dark walnut. Thinks it won't be dark. It has survived multiple winters below 0 and multiple summers well above 110 degrees. So, must be decent. So, that is pretty dark. But this is also very porous wood, so we'll see how much it just soaks right up. Awesome. There's 1 and 2. And here is number 3. And lastly, number 4. There it is. Okay. So, in keeping with the theme of crossover between the trains and the organ, while those dry, I am going to go inside for a bit and practice. I'm not going to make you watch me practice. There's a video of that already on this channel if you really want to watch an hour of that. But it's in a really beautiful church in Lyon, France. But yeah, I'm practicing for another competition in Angers, organ that's just been restored in the city's cathedral. So I'm going to go work on music for that, and after a while I'll come back outside and we'll make some more progress on our crescendo lamp yard lights. So these are not completely dry, but dry enough to to work with. So we're going to keep on going. I have all of these old truck bed lights that I'm not going to use anytime soon, but the wire is perfectly ideal for this kind of application. You can find the end. As much as I want to keep the old, this vintage wire, I love it. It just fits the aesthetic so well, but it's just not long enough, and I don't think it would look good to join a piece to it. So I'm going to remove this. I've got my soldering iron heating up right now. I'm going to remove this wire, solder a new wire on here, and then solder the other one to the ground, and then we'll run these two skinny wires that are already joined together, which is nice. We'll run these just right along the back of the post. I might glue it in place or something, I don't quite know yet. Glue it and zip tie it so it sits, but then it'll look like a nice old post with the cable running down it. And then we'll of course hook the end into our bus lines. So, gonna let this heat up a little longer, and then we'll get going.
We, in fact, did not get going, since at this point I realized I did not have any flux, which is basically the solution that keeps the solder from globbing up on the iron or work surface. So we'll fast forward a few shipping days and then be ready to go.
Alright, now that I have some flux, we can actually get these wires soldered in. Now I feel like it's an important disclaimer to make that just because I'm soldering these does not mean I know how to make the solder look pretty. This is one of the rare occasions where I may side with function over form. I'm gonna sand a bit of this backside here just to help clean it off. After all, this has been inside an organ for over 50 years. More than that, almost, I think 70 years. The organ itself was built in the 50s. I'm not cutting this wire just yet, just to make sure that in case I screw something up, I have room to work with before I commit to a certain length to hook into the bus lines. So where I actually learned to solder, and I think what I'm actually more used to soldering, is stained glass. In high school, my mom, who was an art teacher, she signed herself and I up for a stained glass class at the at the local gallery, and part of that, of course, is soldering the pieces of glass together. There's a couple of methods, but that's kind of where I learned to solder. Not in any electrical capacity, but in a purely artistic capacity. So trying to solder in any other capacity is kind of a, well, it's interesting for me. It's never quite as good as, oopsies, as you can see. Never quite as good as when I would do it with just stained glass. Oh, good gracious. It's sticking, but I don't know how much I actually... Wow. Okay, well, we're just going to roll with it until until it breaks. I just need this to be secure enough that when I attach it to the layout, it doesn't go anywhere. Like I said, I'm not... If you're an electrical guy and you're watching this,
I apologize for the gore that you are witnessing, because it ain't pretty. Fortunately, unlike this joint here, there's already existing solder, so I can kind of just melt the wire into that. So this joint will look less offensive. And look at that. You can really do the ultimate test. Let's just hold it by the wire, and looky there. Strong enough to hold it by the wire. All right, well, let's go make sure that it actually does work. And of course, I'm testing these lights in broad daylight. But I've got power to the track, and let's just see. Haha! Look at that. Nice. Alrighty. Well, let's go get the others soldered up. Alrighty, now we have 4 wired up lampposts. So let's go through these on the layout, and we'll get them wired up and see how they look. That way our workers at the sawmill and our little forklift operator here, they aren't operating in the dark now. And then our last lamp post, put over by the water tower. So that way our steam crew, whenever they come by to fill up the water in the tender, you can see where they're swinging the spout. Alrighty, so we'll get these wired up and then do one last test to make sure they all actually work, and then probably shut the garage door and turn all the lights out, and hopefully it'll light up the layout a little more. I hate wiring with a burning passion. Okay, well, it's the moment of truth. Let's see if I got these wired up right. Here we go. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, that's beautiful. I'm gonna shut the garage door and shut all the lights off, and then we'll see how this looks. Now, oh, look at that. That is so much nicer. That brings a lot of much needed light to the table. And especially over here in the yard, this just looks so much better. You can just see a lot of what's actually going on. But I don't think it's too much light to the point that when it is dark, like it is right now, it doesn't feel completely unnatural. I was worried that having these bulbs not having any kind of, shade of some kind might make them too bright. I could always go in and paint something like on the top half of the bulb, like some black, like some really dark black paint, so that way the light is only coming through on the bottom side. But I think, honestly, it looks fine to me. Now on the bridge, I don't know how I feel about having the light being cast up onto the bridge. It is kind of nice that you can see the trains when they pass through, but this might be one especially where I paint a little black paint on the top of the bulb, so that way the light is shining only on the milk platform and the barrel loader. But otherwise, I'm so pleased with how this turned out. I think I'm most tickled by the fact that this all came from
a few spare light bulbs from an old organ, and I'm glad that they've been able to be put to use and to find some way to try to combine the organ side of things and the, the train side of things. All right, well, that was a fun little project. It admittedly took a little longer than I would have liked, but yeah, a fun way, or at least I had fun. I don't know if you had fun watching it, especially if you couldn't bear to see how I was soldering. So, whether you're here for the trains or for the organ, hopefully there was something for both of you, for each of you. I would also be remiss to not mention a thank you and express my gratitude for surpassing 500 subscribers. So whether you're here for the trains or for the organ, hopefully this was a fun way to celebrate that eclectic combination of viewership. It's also an equally good occasion to announce that my family and I were moving. We're going to move later this summer, which means that this background that you've become familiar with, that I've been very familiar with, is going to change. I have no idea what it'll look like yet. I know that there's room for the train layout. That's not changing. As far as where it's going to go and what it's going to look like, that has yet to be determined. So, the next time that I see you, whether it's in a recording or a layout update video, it'll be in a new setting, which will be very exciting. It's a very good move for us. It brings us closer to family, and in fact, it brings us closer to our entire family on both sides. So it'll be a very busy time, but it'll be a very fruitful time. That's all for now. Thank you for watching.